Good evening, good evening, good evening, one and all. Welcome to Waterhouse Vibes. And our first show for the new year, 2024. You know, I took a break for the past 2 weeks and I tried into Europe and man, I enjoy it. I went to Paris. Paris nice. I went to the cell for Marie Antoinette, you know, that famous woman. And I also went to the tribute to the Paris Commune. You know, it was a very interesting thing, but I learned a lot, you know, and I hope to share some of the experience. I have already shared some things on Facebook, traveling through Europe and UK and what have you. So that's what I've been doing and away from the work. And during that time, a lot has happened in Jamaica. One thing we know right now, the election is scheduled, the local government is scheduled to be held by February 13th. Yeah. One man argued that it should, you know, it closer to the 3rd of February. We don't know, but what is sure is that election is in the air. Election is in the air, and a lot of people talk, a lot of what have you going on. But I find interesting that the discussion in Jamaica is really around the election and what, you know, corruption and what have you. But I want to take this time to share with you a report I found before going to the discussion. You see, I want to share this thing with you. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This is a report that was. This is a news article. Jamaican police. This is for 2023.
Can you scroll down a little so we can see the title?
I'm trying to do that, my brother.
Scroll up, yes, you should say.
It's not alone. Okay. But the top, I can see it from here. It said the Jamaican police killed more than 100 people this year. That was last year, 2023. And the total, they close off with was 133 people, individual, the police killed. I find it strange that nobody said anything. I've not heard any comment on this study. And this study was done by a government agency.
What government agency?
I think the investigation, I don't remember the name of the place, but it was done by a government agency. Let me see if I can get it.
Because from what I'm seeing here, it looks like this was put out in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, AP.
Yeah, I understand it's AP, but AP is not a Puerto Rican company. AP is associated with press. Them really cover world news, right?
Right.
But I'm just wondering, with it being published in Puerto Rico, why Puerto Rico? And, you know, why not publish in Jamaica? Why is it not? Because Jamaica carry AP news. I mean, the Gleaner carry AP news. A lot of the world news where the Gleaner carries from AP. So come that wasn't published. That article wasn't published, and
Well,
it's about Jamaica.
that's why I find strange. That's why I raised it, because I haven't heard anything in the news about this report. If you notice the report, the date of it is November 3rd, 2023. And all we have heard from the government is more draconian measures to deal with crime and violence in Jamaica. You know? So what's really going on? Mr. Radigan, what do you think? Should this be a concern, the police killing kill. Should that be a concern?
I just want to make note before Mr. Rattigan that I do see a November 4th, 2023 article with the same headline on the Jamaica Observer. Jamaican security forces shot more than 100 people this year, body camera used only once.
Yeah.
So whatever it is, it did come out. It's referencing the San Juan AP, but it came out on Jamaica Observer newspaper, just to qualify that.
Yeah, Radigan, you were saying.
Yeah. I have to keep in mind that as far as resources are concerned, that the JCF is resource starved. And that's coming not from me, that's coming from the chairman of the Federation, Chairman Rowan James. And he can tell you that despite the proclamations about the huge sums of money spent on reforming or transforming the JCF, that's not the case. They really can't account for all the monies that have been disbursed to the Ministry of National Security. So that in and of itself is a concern. Another concern is this murder rate that they come out with, and they said that it's 1,300 and something, 7% less than last year. Last year it was 1,498. Last year meaning 2022. Well, I found out a few things, and I'm actually waiting to get a response from them. Found out that any number they give you is illusory. It's not accurate. Reason, and even though you may say 1,400, you don't say 1,400, or you don't say 1,450, you don't say 1,500. You get like a true number, like 1,493. So you say, oh, this sounds accurate. It's not, because they have something called death investigations that they've been doing for it goes year after year after year, and the cases have not been resolved, and they get transferred to the following year. And the purpose of that is to determine, whether there was a homicide, a suicide, or some other or self-defense, some other cause for the death. Then they have the autopsy report showing cause of death. They have, I think, maybe 2 government pathologists. They can't do everything. They're overwhelmed. Some of the bodies are being buried or burned before they can even get to the cause of death. Then you have missing persons. Then you have people who have been shot, treated, released, and because of sepsis, they've died like 6 months after. And the way it's the way the law is worded is that if you die from a gunshot, if you're injured by a gunshot, then if you die within a year and a day, then they'll decide whether it's a homicide or not. So we don't have those numbers. As I mentioned, the missing persons numbers. So I found this out by talking to them. And when I reached out to them, they came back and said, oh, you have to define what you mean by annual homicide rate. And you have to define this and define that. Anyway, long story short, I ended up speaking to the person who's in charge of the statistical department for the JCF. So he wrote me last week. I'm expecting to get clarification on the numbers. So I'll share them with you next week. But don't believe the hype when I tell you this, that it's down by 7%. And you saw a recent comment made by the Prime Minister. The crime rate is down. Crime rate is down, but the perception of crime is up. And that the crime rate is the lowest it's been in 22 years. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. I think what happened, there was one element of the comprehensive homicide rate that fell 22%. And I don't know what happened, but he used that number, 22, to say crime is the lowest it's been in 22 years. Absolute rubbish. So next week, hopefully I'll get it this week, and I'll talk to you about it next week. But this 100 thing, this thing about the body camera use, I knew it's not them now weird, Nita. They won't. First of all, they don't have enough. They don't have enough. And they got what happened in the initial stages, the US government gave them, I forgot the number again, like 100 as test cases. And then they were supposed to purchase. In fact, the money was disbursed by the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of National Security specifically to purchase body cams. And the questions are not being asked. Where are the body cams? Or better yet, if we don't have the body cams, where is the money? So that's what we have.
But regardless of the resource, I still think that 133 killed by the police is a cause of for serious concern, and nobody seems to, neither government official or the opposition seem to concern with the level of police killing. They know
Uh,
what.
Mike, if I can say something here.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
As I was saying before we went live, apart from the whole issue of resources, I think there's a mindset in the government that sees crime fighting in a certain way. If we can remember when this government came to power, they tried to dismantle and to water down Indicom for the sole reason that they thought that there's a certain kind of policing that is needed to fight crime, and organizations like Indicom and the human rights organizations in Jamaica are a stumbling block to this approach to fighting crime. We must remember that these people, they believe in what they call the crime fighters, these policemen that they give this fancy label of crime fighters, as if that's not the duty of every policeman to fight crime. And what these so-called crime fighters are supposed to do is to go into these communities, usually the poor communities like Waterhouse, Greenwich Farm, those places, and target certain youths and murder them. And when they murder them, there should be no outcry. Because if you as a person make an outcry against the murdering of these youths, you would be targeted as someone who is not on board with the crime fighting strategy of the government, and you would be labeled as somebody who don't want to solve the crime problem. So it's not just a matter of resources, it is a matter of approach to crime fighting that this government has an approach to.
Patrick, you want
Yes.
to chime in?
Yes. When it comes to even some of these expressions we use, right? I really just shake my head when I hear these expressions when we talk about crime fighting and all of that. How can we fight crime? Crime is an illusion. Crime is something which should not even be happening to begin with, right? The real instigator of crime is really the government. It is social issues that lead to crime, right? Social issues which exist because of the nature of the political system, right? That's basically what it is, right? And when we look at it more closely, you look at who is committing the crime, really. The one who is committing the crime is really the one who sets policies, right? They are the ones who are trying to determine what is crime and what isn't, right? And they set up a police force that basically has a hostile relationship with the community. And all of these things are intentional. It is done that way for a particular reason, right? And that's why when we talk about government corruption and all of that, this is how deep it runs, right? Notice, crime spikes when you have a government that is oppressive, a government which does not provide opportunities for the improvement of livelihood among people, right? And what you have is retaliation within communities which they classify as crime, right? The youngsters who get involved in crime and all of this is youngsters who are not, they're not youngsters who are even under any kind of tutelage, right? To enrich them life. Therefore, the only thing they see, right, is to retaliate against what they consider to be the things that deny them, right, access to where they want. That's how crime is really generated. But crime is not something real that should be happening, right? So we try to talk about crime as if it's something we're supposed to be living with, right? It's a legacy we carry coming out of the old colonial system and all of that. All of that was founded on violence against the people. That is really what is at the heart of the whole thing, right? As to the part about the police and equipment and so on, right? That cannot be an issue, because the fact of the matter is, body cameras don't even cost that much. I was looking at the prices of body cameras just this past week. Body cameras don't cost anything. Electronics cheap, right? They have no interest in putting body cameras out there, because body cameras mean that you're going to bring police to accountability. They don't want that. They certainly don't want that, right? So they have no reason to want to provide such equipment, right? They don't spare any money when it comes to buying firearms and buying buying ammunition. They have tons of that. They always have tons of that. You never hear a police cry out for lack of ammunition or lack of gun. They have that. Yeah, Maxine.
Maxine.
Yes, I was just indicating that on January 11th, there was another article that Jamaica probes police killings of 4 people in 24 hours, including a teenage boy. So, and just in general, Jamaica certainly, from the human rights perspective, this subject has been the focus of, international organizations like Amnesty International, who consistently, is writing reports and, describing the situation as how you see it. You displayed it earlier today. So it is literally um, like the thought that they're bringing up is the conventions that Jamaica is signatory to, that disproves of these behavior. However, the authorities, as you say, the government, either party actually, um, they just find ways to, say like their hands are tied. Like they do these surface things, like talk about body cameras. I saw where they ordered 1,000 in April last year. And the idea for me about the body cameras is interesting, because I don't think anybody wants to convict themselves. So I think the incorporation of the body cameras will be a very uh, interesting, turn of events, when it actually has to be used in the manner that it was designed for, you know. But I would see that there would be a utmost resistance based on what the police are mandated to do or authorized to do versus these body cameras.
Fitzy, you want to share anything?
Yeah, man, certainly. Well, as a father who lose a son to the police force, it's very
Yes.
important I speak, because
That's why I asked. I didn't want to say it. I want to hear it come from you.
well, yeah, because in a Waterhouse we lose a son at 17, and that, like, look at you, over St. Patrick's School up on the wall, and you to police. My son was sitting on the wall eating his food, and them 2 friends them run, and he was killed. He was murdered. He was shot in the back. Cause when him friend them say police him run out. You know, the youth they never have no gun or nothing at all, and you know the uprising of the community. And the superintendent sent for me and said, listen this, we have all on the name of the ghetto, you know. We have on a statement already, we can't come kill no. So I prefer nobody even try. You know what I mean? I say, yeah, Mr. Campbell, Paro, I think he's resigned now, but he told me that in front of my virgin then. And we studied history, got the constitution. Why was the police force formed in that time? It was to suppress the lower class people, you know, who rebel against the system. As the Virgin said, the government is the one who implement crime. So we know that in every government, whether the partition or everything, it's a suppressive thing. That the police force is not to rebel against the higher class people. It's the ghetto. You know what I mean? I said that's why I said the music emerge. Because it, as you know, Nita, we see a lot of these youth. Junior Reid, we know a shorty. The first youth from Waterhouse who was charged for gun in the gun court. You understand? We see we can know all the youth them where we will know were gun youth in a Waterhouse. Not for them turn musician, not for them migrate, not for them was killed. And who give them the gun? The same politician. We see these things, including our brother. You understand? Our own family. We have a brother that was police also. You know me, I say he was killed also, not violently but accidentally in a crash. But he show me a lot of things as youth and know say yeah, I prefer to leave crime, you know, because nobody nothing can save you now. Once you come from the ghetto, you know, police can run in your house without a warrant. You can't tell police say you have a warrant. And where's your warrant? Man, they kick you down and them thing there and beat you up and abuse you. You know, so the police force is not designed to protect or serve the people. It is designed to support. It is designed to support and protect the government, whichever party in our power, whether PNP or Labour right. You understand? Yeah. But as a father who lose a 17-year-old, I'm gonna say, well, I'm virgin them. That's how we migrate, you know. That's I wrote we are youth in exile, you know, because I have to leave my community, you know, because the police them tell me, say, listen, Fitzroy Francis. Because the man and take my passport, you know. Remember, we are road manager, we travel all over the world with Black Hoover truck, Fender, name it. And Jabees, his truck Fender. When the man take my passport, them say, oh, are you a buy the gun them? I say, officer, I've never buy a gunshot and a gunshot yet. I say, the youth in the community, the youth them will fire the gun. Yeah, I'm not going to deny them because we know them father. Their father was our protectorate from political violence. Rattigan is a man who come from Rona Yapsang, which is part of our base community too, because we were branded, you know. Towel call we Labour right, Waterhouse call we PNP. We were in the center, the Balmaji community. So we were a target from both the PNP and the Labour right community until it come in from we that most of the people have to run with. A lot of house was burned down and we never see police come defend the people and yet. You know what I say? So as the brother said, crime is an illusion, but it's a reality today because them put on the people in mind. And as Bob Marley said, laws create crime and violence. When the people them come up with ideas and way to be economically viable, them suppress it by law. So instantly you make a people survival become illegal. And then the police come and suppress them. And that's what keep happening today. The youth them even get more violent now. The youth them start depend upon the politician and forget gun. Not for them come a foreign and then buy gun and send come give them virgin because they have to protect them family. What's the man with all go come and rape or we look at friend them and them thing in the community and some of our brethren know say, Rocky, we can't do them, we have to have gun, you know. We have to buy our own gun and start defend the community. And that's even very serious. You understand? Very, very serious. So you see, when it comes to the music of Waterhouse now, that is where the old power come out. It save a lot of youth life. Even a lot of youth who today are star. Like the Junior Reid and the Ducky Simpson and all of them. Because they were part of that political violence uprising too. Some of them run with, some of them didn't. You know what I say? So, yeah.
Gentlemen, I think I'm in agreement with the sentiment expressed. I'm really agree because I grew up in Waterhouse and like Rocky, you know, Patrick and Rattigan. I've seen some terrible things. You know, I'm always listening to Rocky. My mind go right back to Sandokan in terms of how that youth there was criminalized, and the media fall in line, and they paint a picture of this dangerous man when we know Sandokan was just a simpleton, a little youth with all them things here, but I don't know.
Wayne Smith.
Yeah,
Wayne Smith. That's the next experience because the youth will live in front of Tubby's. In
yeah,
Tubby's yard, Sandokan, Wayne. Come in my mother Sandokan, Wayne Smith.
yeah.
Wayne Smith. You understand? Wayne. And it's police. It's police why the youth they become violent because police. But at the first, like a young youth, you know, I say married, you know, have him wife, you know. Wayne, you know. And youth there was so, because there was some brilliant, educated youth, you know. You understand? And them turn him into a criminal because me not call the police name, but him dead I know. You understand? Him backs up the man wife in front of him.
Yep.
And from that day, Wayne
Things
turn
change.
up. Yeah man take up him gun man and start. Yeah man, even him kill the police them. Everybody know, cause Wayne, that's how the community love him.
Yeah, everybody.
Protect him.
I'm
The
glad you said
soldier
that.
them protect him. The police them protect him. Even the church, Father Albert, so no can't kill him now. No can't kill him. And them own people them conspire and kill him. Him own community. Because through the politics, the politician tell us the community say, listen,
Get rid of him.
you can't live in peace, you know. So I prefer to push him out, you know. And them set him up by him own friend and him own friend kill him. So I've got to touch that subject. And we have more of these birds, you know, we can talk about it. Because them say,
More.
so them youth that youth will grow with from 1976, me see them thing that my own. Rattigan supposed to know my old man, Mr. Randall, you know, because them man they sell the food, you know. Down a Penna Road, you know. And my father was the man who have him cared. All the artists, before them even turn artists, the Bowley and the Dan Carlos and the Laxi Castell, the music come sitting on my father, Dan Carlos, the God Dennis, the whole of them. My father used to feed them because them not work. Then them a postman, got to them used to work for, you understand?
Custom.
Yeah, custom them as the I know. Because we are youth them time, we are 10, you know. You see, me Rattigan them supposed to be a bigger youth than we. Rattigan them supposed to know our brother like Trevor and Jimmy them and Danny them, because them are the elder one for we. We were like school, I go Balmaji primary them time there. But them youth they used to run up and down because those youth used to build our kites and build our borders and you understand? As like a youth. We don't know no friend our community, because our community was a developed community. We don't know about zinc fence and them thing there now. We know about flush toilet and wall house and light. So we were a developed community. We were good to know. So our education, you know. The whole of our youth. And one time we had struggle. Our mother said, high school, you know. All of my family them go high school, you know, from KC to Excelsior to none of my brothers don't go no secondary school. Whole of we go high school. And so that was our aim and aspiration. We have KC Youth, we have Georges, we have St. Andrew High, we have all the childhood, name it. But that was the whole concept, you know. So yeah, them thing I will go after. Politics, mash up the community, politics.
On that note, I want to segue into talking about Waterhouse specifically and the music heritage because Rocky, you're right on target. If it wasn't for the music, enough more man would have dead. Enough more man that end up at prison. It was the music, and especially King Tubby's. King Tubby's provide a space for youth and youth.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
took Tubby's when Tubby's put up him long steel line up in the tree and let her play. Anyway in a Waterhouse, that sound they call you. You know. So on that note, Maxine, the floor is yours, you know. Tell us now, tell us your ideas, the plan, and what have you, and specifically look in regards to Waterhouse, because I know you're celebrating 50 years of dancehall sound and what have you, right? 1974 to 2024. And Waterhouse, me and my brethren them said, everybody a talk about Trench Town, but nobody not talk about Waterhouse. And reach out to you because, as them say, you are the intellectual property right,
Yeah,
person.
without
And
a doubt and question.
yeah, and I know that Waterhouse have a heritage, a legacy. And one of the questions many of us ask is how come so much music come out of Waterhouse but we not see the development? Is it a lack of we not being creative, using intellectual property right to access resource or what have you? What is it? What is preventing Waterhouse from benefiting from the music heritage? And where you stand, how can we, the community, the resident, what can we do?
Okay, greetings to the audience and the panel. On the subject, it's interesting that we segued into it from the crime and violence, conversation. It actually frames a lot of what the music as, what you call Fitzroy?
Yeah,
You call him
Fitzroy.
a name.
Mightyful 13. I will come. Yeah, that's
No, but him call your name and Rocky or
Rocky. Yeah, Rocky.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. 'Cause I don't want to
so
call a different name and the people wondering is whom I talking.
no, so we know him. And
And
that's
Rock,
how we know him.
Yeah.
well, I'll adopt the name Rocky too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, as Rocky said. But yeah, so the concept of why the killings are occurring and why the music, this type of extrajudicial killing by authorities or seem to be mandated, like unspoken in the police force, and the communities that the music arise from, even the Scatterlights or any of our, history musicians, they were actually the bad boys that were sent to Alpha School, and like it's just this rebellion. I was even just ideating in myself about the whalers that I'm very focused on as a group, that they were born between 1944 and 1947, which was when the African Jamaican descendants first got the right to vote. And as a group, they grew up in the whole struggle for identity and independence. The group actually flowered in 1962-63 as we were getting independence. So our music is directly related to um, our development as a people and, surviving a system that we have inherited, the legacy of slavery, as we all know, and the economics is not even really the slavery, the brutality of it, but the economic structure that we, as we don't own the economics or we don't share in the economics to the level of our population and who owns it. It's almost like a apartheid system in terms of ownership. Less than 1% or near to the 1% number own the majority of the wealth in the nation. And so you must have these type of outputs, culturally speaking to that. So even as you spoke about Trenchtown and Waterhouse, Trenchtown has not benefited from all of the promotion, you know, relative to how well Trenchtown is known and how much the brand is known. The development of Trenchtown, the benefits coming to the development of Trenchtown from the music is virtually non-existent, other than culture yard, and if you that's First Street. If you go on Second Street, it's crazy. Meaning, in respect of what you feel that the music is benefiting or what it's making or the lifestyle. It's $1 billion industry globally. But our communities, whether it's the inner city communities where we churn out our expressions from, or in specific case, the Rastafari community, which has, formed this international philosophy and lifestyle that is now $1 billion industry in and of itself, separate from even what the music is doing. So, what is interesting for me for Waterhouse in terms of my focus on promoting dance hall as a genre and as a history of Jamaican music, similar to how reggae has been, as that was a genre, has been elevated to that you see the whole history of Jamaican music through the reggae genre. It's titled reggae. They actually don't say it's the Jamaican music history, is reggae, reggae, reggae. But that title came from the ascendancy of the roots reggae genre, and in particular the ascendancy of Bob Marley, to be known worldwide, and that became associated with Jamaican music, and then everybody just say, "Oh, Jamaican music is reggae," and they try to define the music just through that lens, and that may be why also Trenchtown um, loom so large in the perception that it is benefiting potentially more than Waterhouse. But Waterhouse, for me, as I have met you, and a place that I've been to, treading with mostly with Sugar Minott, as he produced his music going to Jammies, Tubbies, Bunny Wizzy, etc. And I'm aware of it again through Supercat, even though he's not in Waterhouse, quote unquote, proper, but Cockburn Pen, and you, Roy. I'm very aware, or became hugely aware now, of the depth of the music from this community. And in fact, I learned that both Trenchtown and Waterhouse have been named as communities that should benefit from the recent recognition that Jamaican music got with UNESCO. That there's actually a focus on Waterhouse, that the government agencies related to culture, etc., should actually be already seeking to develop and define in more practical ways how the music um, history and heritage in Waterhouse is to be developed. So it's not so my attention to it is actually seeing that, yeah, everybody knows about Waterhouse, but it is like Waterhouse doesn't have a leadership identity musically, like how Mali is associated with Trenchtown, because really it's Mali that holds up Trenchtown. Like I said, there's nothing else really happening beneficially for Trenchtown from the music, other than Culture Yard, and people. I guess there's some economics because people want to visit Trenchtown, meaning I hear that that is the number one place that Airbnb gets requests from, in people wanting to, come into Jamaica. It's the number one community and space in Jamaica that people actually want to go to. If that they can go there is a whole nother question. But the demand for visitors is huge, possibly much more than it can allow, because of the crime and violence and the underdevelopment of the space. So my interest in Waterhouse, because Trenchtown is with the Mali, the Wailers, the reggae, the Rastafari. Waterhouse was interesting to me to find out now that my focus on the sound system, the rise of the toasters, the DJs, and the innovation of the rhythm, right? All who are elements that really drive the Jamaican music industry. And the reason for the 50th year is because of the focus on it, is because the recent focused on Hip Hop 50, which celebrated its beginning from Cool Herc, who was a DJ, meaning a mixer, coming from the sound system space in Jamaica. So it's the Hip Hop 50 that actually pushed um, the investigation into what is happening with Jamaica, with the sound system, and obviously with the dance hall. That is both a space and an industrial development of engineers. You know, it flows into the creation of the music, of the rhythms that really do define the music now, you know, say from the 70s coming to today. So it was um, it was very good, and you know that we got to meet. I know Mikey was very forthright on Facebook. I think that's how we actually knew of our worlds, and I was like, who is this person just writing writing about, you know, this space so forcefully. And so when we connected and I started to connect the dots in my head, I said, wow, so this Waterhouse um, should be elevated in this global promotion of dancehall. And even in so doing, I began to learn more and more and more of how the sound system, how the not just the sound system, but the engineers behind the sound systems, how that whole process was so linked to Waterhouse. Then I started to, you know, I didn't even know where Waterhouse was, honestly, because I've been to different spaces and I didn't see it like where does it start? Where does it, you know, end? Because I've been there to all the studios that we are speaking about. And even as Rastafari, I was there with the Royal, you know, Judah Coptic Church, which is one of the foundation spaces for the elders of the Rastafari movement on Welcome Avenue. And so I've been in the territory. I know about Ghetto Splash moving from Craigtown, you know, and it's now based in Waterhouse. So, like I said, it's like it's something already known, but not having a leader or a leading principle to galvanize it. When I actually went and did the tour with Chris um, about a couple weeks ago, and he toured me through the whole space. My mind was blown, you know, at the amount of heritage and also the community, because, you know, in Trenchtown, you have a certain type of community, how the people were housed, you know, what was the basis. But in Waterhouse, it was a different type of communities. It's a different, you know, not against or for, but it just was different. You know what I mean? And someone I was just talking to Clyde McKenzie, another musicologist out of Jamaica, about Waterhouse, and he says, yes, that's where the business was. That's where the business, from his perspective, that the business of Jamaican music is, you know, the foundation is Waterhouse. And he was excited also to know that it was going to get this linkage to this campaign and to be able to develop its potential and potentially, as Mikey had shown me, the center where there's some development towards a studio, and Chris showed me a space when I was touring, which is like at a crossroads, where I don't know what area that is, but is where all the buses
Bay Farm,
congregate.
Bay Farm Road and
Huh?
Pendle Road.
Yeah,
Bay Farm Road
Right,
and Pendle Road.
yeah, Visa bench.
Yeah.
right. And when I went there, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a like, culture yard can't even meet this in terms of the potential traffic, to be able to see and interrelate with the music and the history. I actually saw a space that could be the culture yard for Waterhouse, and I said, oh wow, this could, all kind of things came to my mind because it was so like a meeting point, natural meeting point. It's not something that you have to go and create an opportunity for people to come and investigate and see. And while there, I saw that murals had also been started to tell the story of the music through TPDCO. And also through that, I understood that those agencies are already um, integrated, knowing that they have to do something with the space. And so I'm looking forward to working with the Waterhouse personalities that have been introduced to, both on this program and on the ground. And certainly, I got to know that Rocky is a. He identified to me immediately that he's a Waterhouse soldier. I know, obviously, I have a great relationship with Sly Dunbar, Sly and Robbie, and I have a great relationship with VP Records, who uh, distributes and/or is in touch with so many of the owners of the history. Unfortunately, spaces like Tubby's, um, the home or the whole assets have been uh, sold off, but there's a wall, that can still hold the heritage of the space. I also, as a Whalers fan, found out about the Whalers um, area, like a whole area called Whalers. you know, I think that's near where Junior Reed
It's
also lives.
from.
He's
What's
from.
from? Yes.
Yeah,
It's
so I
right
have
there. Yeah, yes. The
I
wheel.
have all kind of stories and content and whatever to just like, oh my gosh, it's just too much. So it's more, I was looking forward now to both being on this program and getting more persons involved in what type of infrastructure should be set up. Potentially a trust, a music trust. What, now that we have all this information and have eyes and potentially this campaign to bring attention, what is the infrastructure that is going to be associated, you know, with and through. And so that's where I am with Mikey and Chris and everyone here on this forum, is to brainstorm now what didn't happen in Trenchtown and what should happen with this focus on Waterhouse that itself could benefit, you know, Trenchtown. And another factor I would bring forward is the artists themselves. There's an expectation that the artists from the area would automatically step up as ambassadors. But me being from the industry, I know that the artists are not um, owners so much in the industry. They receive royalties and they work for an industry, right? They don't own the industry. And for us to achieve the benefits from the community, it is the industry that, as a community, we need to be conversant with. You know what I mean? And have strategies of how to engage the artists who most times are themselves feeling abused, or they are not um, they have brand value but they may not have economic value to share, back in. But this structure that I speak of that needs to be formalized to make use of these great assets needs to be, structured in a particular way, both for the artists and for community members in the diaspora who love Waterhouse, who are engaged with Waterhouse, engaged with the history. Mikey showed me and told me about, and I went to several major dance halls, you know. In fact, one of the spaces that I was recommending for the culture yard type space for Waterhouse was actually an old dance hall. And so,
Penn Avenue,
yeah, right.
White
So,
House.
White House.
Oh, David core office. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, Waterhouse structurally is full of potential development. And I said uniquely so because it has this traffic, that comes off a Spanish Town Road, coming right through, going to halfway tree, is just a space that is dynamic. So there's much more to say, but it would probably come out in the questions that I'm asked. But I'm fully immersed, and it is definitely associated with the 50 years of dancehall, which I should explain. It it's an innovation surrounding when the music became the rhythms, you know, and King Tubby's was a pioneer of creating this or initiation because this is where his innovation he sought to make the sound of the dance hall, what was happening in the dance hall, that it could come on a record, like you could get the feel of the dance hall in a record, right? And he began toying with the rhythms that were being made into an alphabet, like a language, by the sound systems, because the sound systems chose certain rhythms, that pushed the sound system industry forward. And those rhythms and became the basis for the toasting, for the toasters, and that's where Tubby's was innovative too. He literally recorded the first DJ record with U-Roy, and it was because U-Roy was performing in the dance hall on these experimental rhythms that John Holt told um, Duke Reed that this was happening, which created, this first, this first that what we are saying, the beginnings of dancehall, and several other innovations that we're not even. I'm not privy to say now because I don't want nobody running with it, but it's very dynamic and, like I said, outside of say Coxon and Duke Reed, um, there's so many sound systems and operators and engineers that came out of Waterhouse. You know, it it is and it deserves and it will be, a mecca um, for the music.
Any questions for Maxine? You no,
No, well, very interested analysis, but I would like to add something because Upton Brown, aka Scientist, he was also a chief engineer with Tubby's.
Yes.
All those delays and things, because Tubby's was a technician, Tubby's used to fix the RAM, the amps, them. But you see, the engineer behind the board, a lot of those sounds and things, it was really scientists. You understand? Even jammies know these things.
Yes.
Sometimes scientists don't get enough credit, and yeah, but an engineer like Philip Smart who was there and migrated, and then scientists come and scientists migrated, and you have jammies and Phantom, Pig and all these youths. So, and I wanted to know that there's a place in Waterhouse named the Cage, 23 Bishop Avenue. it is the first place where stereograph played in the community.
Mm-hmm.
2 home beside my home. 23 Bishop Avenue is the first club in that community, very developed. You know, when Tubby's car sound system, whenever you associate with the thing dancer, it was more like sound system. And you know, we as youth now, when the sound them ever keep, the man them say, yo, when can make some money as youth, and we look bamboo. The man them that fix up the bamboo them and make the fence, the hall now. The bamboo was the hall and you know, night time when the dancer key. We couldn't go to dance, we forgot to dance when it done and we go pick up buckle and all them things and buckle stop and sell. Because that's how we as youth also make money, you know. So it's really interesting how you really put it together, Maxine. But the other day when I see Chris in the community, I say, wait, I'm gonna see Chris I show you 13 Bishop Avenue where on the striker yard that you know, and then we have 15 Bishop Avenue Light Brevet yard in we have Dan Carlos yard in a Penistone, and we have Herman Kane yard 6 Penistone Avenue, we have Junior Reed yard 28
Yeah,
Balmond
he
yard,
pointed them out. We didn't
you
actually
know.
go. I didn't actually
A whole
show.
of a yard yeah, no, I'm just saying that the video that I saw, you know, because I
No,
don't
you only
see
see piece of the video. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
yeah,
I didn't show you the whole video.
yeah man. So Nita said keep calm rocky, don't worry yourself. Because I said before before these virgin were even acknowledged as singers, them used to them in my yard. Because the Rastafari saved them too, you know. 'Cause my uncle was
Yes,
the
yes.
Rasta man, but the
It was
whole of
a
them used to
huge.
come. Them couldn't smoke ganja then yard, them used to come in my yard. You know, around Javik and come burn ganja around a bongo tea and them elder there, you know. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's how it go, you know. But you're right.
But this is why I was saying to
Waters
you,
that
though.
Waters that is really bad. And I want to say this. Water is the byproduct of Trenchtown because my grandmother, after 1951 storm, when the community built up, they migrated from Trenchtown. Because my mother and uncle that they passed away, born in front of tree in Fourth Church Street, in front of Bob Marley Yard. You understand? They were from Trenchtown originally, but after the 51 storm, they have to migrate now and then the Balmaji community, because that's what it named in it name, Balmaji Penwood community. 'Cause it was written on our own before this Waterhouse name come up. I never even know in the 870s we hear about Waterhouse, which it wasn't really even associated with where we live. It was more like Peter could tell like more of a Jews land and those places doing the park and those places, Patrick City before the whole community. Right now, Buckers, all even with Super Cat now, once you touch off Olympic Way and Bay Farm Road coming down a Waterhouse. And the politics create that. 1978, 76. And a man said, no, go down there, you know. A Waterhouse, you know, they will kill you down there, you know. Everything on Waterhouse. You jump on a 8 bus, man want to kill you. Jump on a 15 bus, man try to come from one I go downtown and one I go cross road. Waterhouse. So the whole Waterhouse now become a name where all of them communities get together on one community.
On that note, I want to bring Rupi into the discussion. Rupi, you're a man from Cockburn Pen, part of the Greater Waterhouse. Why you have to say with regards to what Maxine just outlined about this program and how we can generate some progress within the Waterhouse area? I want to hear your take, my brother.
You're muted, Rupi. You're muted.
Muted.
No, you're still muted.
They're muted.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
You guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, man, you're big.
Clear. All right, guys. First of all, let me wish you all everything that is good for 24. I really hope that you guys will have excellent health. And I hope that you all will make some more success in the ensuing year. You'll make more money and possibly develop your family more. That is how I want to start my comments. In fact, I listened to the first half of the discussion, and I think both Will and Patrick make some very important point. even though Patrick thing appeared to be a little bit more philosophical from the point of view that crime is an illusion and created by the government and the big people in the country. But I think that Will was a little bit more pointed in terms of some of the problems within the police force itself, and some of the problem as it relating to corruption that is hindering the police force from actually um, do what them supposed to be doing in terms of trying to curb crime. But the subject of the music, I think the brethren, Mr. Francis, I think very interested in terms of the fact that him is a youth that grow in a Waterhouse and actually know and understand the development around the music itself. And I think he make 2 points that is fundamental. And I think we must listen and listen good to people like Francis. I think the first point he make earlier on is that music literally save hundreds, if not thousands of life in Waterhouse. Because the fact that most of the youth, the only thing that them could gravitate to is music. The music bail them out. As it relating to economic aspect of the thing and socially to develop them life and them family life and pass down things to brethren and brethren. I think that was profound. He also went on to say that Waterhouse is incorporated as it relating to the whole Cockburn Pen, Kingston 11, and he mentioned all the way down the Olympic way. And in fact, my brethren, it go a little further. That Painland stretch, that back to stretch, that part of Walton where Booger Mine and that come from. All of it is part of the Kingston 11 reality, which to a great extent, which you come to the final point to say that in a way, Waterhouse is like a younger child, so to speak, as it relating to music, to Trenchtown. And I just want to remind the brethren, him raise the point because I have the connection that his parents, out of the 51 star, migrated to Waterhouse. And we mustn't forget that Waterhouse was a community in terms of them houses that was built after the 51 storm by Daddy Michael Manley. And I want to make that because that is very important. Waterhouse was one of the first that were able to have those formal type of
Correct.
houses. And as the
1 minute there,
brethren say,
Mr. Rupert. Don't cut it out. This is
yeah,
very important because remember after the 51 storm, I don't know if Michael Manley was in power, but I learned
not
that it's
Michael
very
Manley, man, Norman Manley.
okay. Because
I said Michael Manley, no, Norman Manley.
all right, go ahead, continue.
Yes. Yeah, man. Definitely. Thank you for the correction, brethren, if I say Michael. But that is profound because the point the brethren make is that a portion of the artists them, that live in a Waterhouse and so on, to some extent, have connection to with Trenchtown. And just a few of them come to my mind. That old Dennis family, God Dennis, Trevor Dennis, which is Dangody, in brother which used to play right outside right for Boystown, Major League team. Dangody used to play for Boystown, Major League team, before him started to play for Great West in a Waterhouse. All of them, that entire family, migrate from Trenchtown and actually buy them house in a firehouse, in a Waterhouse. But not only that, Lucky Simpson used to go to Boystown school, My Diamond, Tabby Diamond, who them shoot and kill, a Boystown him used to go to, And the whole of them man, they originate from out of Trenchtown. In fact, Wailing Souls, actually most of the artists within Wailing Souls which God was a part of Wailing Souls, and some other persons originate out of Trenchtown and comprise Wailing Soul. Not only Wailing Soul, but Black Oruro. The connection with Trenchtown and Waterhouse also evident there. The point I'm making is that the brethren is definitely on target. There's a link between Trenchtown and Firehouse. And the point I've been making, I think it's the second time I have this discussion, and I want to big up Maxine again. I always a big up Maxine, right? Maxine brings so much energy and clarity. The fact that she's a master in this industry, in this industry, she brings to the table. And I'm always happy to hear and to listen to Maxine. But I think it is imperative, Maxine, that we and Michael, yes, lead with Waterhouse, but that Kingston 11 thing, man, right? You right, I don't have Kling Avenue, right? The big DJ there. If you can look, Super Cat, the Joe Wheel in Cockburn Pen and Tower Hill. Big Belly Man, right? Big Belly Man. Again, Cockburn Pen, you know. And we can go on and name the amount of artists out of Cockburn Pen. I think, yeah, man. Shabba Ranks. I think I've listed maybe about 15 again. I mean, Barrington Levy out of back to, right? And we can just go on and name some of the international, both reggae and DJ artists that come out of the entire Kingston 11. So, Michael
I said Barrington Levy. I don't cut you. I said Barrington Levy. He was taken into Waterhouse by a youth named Eric McIntyre and take to a sound system named Sugar D. The first time Barrington Levy hold a mic. Penn Crescent, Penn Avenue. No, not Penn Avenue, Penistone Avenue. That youth exists today. If you say Barrington Levy, you know talk about these things. And that's why I tell Nita, say, sometimes I come to the music of Waterhouse and the bridging them, I'm very disappointed at them. Because when them do interviews, they don't speak of the people who were there with them, for them, by them, before them was artists, before people even acknowledge them. Music beings in the Waterhouse was no professional where your mother even want to see a link with the music people, because it wasn't seen as a future. It wasn't income viable. Your mother said you got high school, you want your partner man with a guitar, come sit down and smoke ganja. Our parents never see those things. But we used to learn because our Rasta we were elder them.
Basically feel that them man
them used to sit down beside the Rasta man them. So we know say when we listen to the Rasta brethren, that are very intellectual things we did not learn at school. So Barrington Levy, a Waterhouse, him come learn sound system and singing thing, Waterhouse, when I saw him, Sugar D, history. We see them thing there as youth. A lot of evidence we have been about. Sometimes I don't like talk about Waterhouse music because the brethren them tell so much lies. And if we talk the truth, they're gonna feel offended.
No man, we must talk, brother. Because
when Nita invite me, I'm here say Maxine snowed upon it. I couldn't resist the offer.
Ratigan.
Great, sir. No, Michael, make one more point before you bring in. I will. The point to Maxine make about the King Tubby's thing, I think again is very, 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 very important. And I think the brethren start to endorse it. You see that this King Tubby's thing, the king, you know, and him put it right, was more the technical man. But he have a little engineering experience. But King Tubby's really invent the reverb. The thing where them call reverb in a music, you know. He's the first man that create that in the world, you know. A brethren that do some profound study on King Tubby's is Professor Clinton Hutton. And Maxine, I think maybe you should have some dialogue with Clinton. Clinton is a nice brethren. And him, you know, he's not one of them guys that we want cold shoulder you. And if you want, you can call my name or you call Michael name. Right? But Clinton Clinton is a man that do some serious study in terms of King Tubby's, and some of the things them that him actually create. And if my memory serve me right, he might be the first man who bring out the rubber duck thing, who basically take the vocal out of the music and call it dub. I remember I listened to you right play
Definitely.
15 piece, 15 piece Asata Masagana when in there with King Tubby's. 15 piece Asata Masagana. So the King Tubby's thing, Maxine, it's real and it's big and it's international. Because there's some first that come out of King Tubby's. And I think we can go back and do some research. But outside the research, Hutton himself has done tremendous research on it. And maybe we don't have to basically go over it again.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you with Hutton. Just to strengthen that point, I know that because I know the research that he has done on the music overall. I think it's for some on a university level. It is some audio library, that he has created. So to say that, we have a lot of resources that exist. That's the thing about Jamaica. The fact that we don't have a museum, we don't have a national museum. You understand what I'm saying? But we have people like Hutton and so many like assets, but it has nowhere, no structure to attach itself to, which is why I said our brainstorming next is about that structure that can make this connection, between the industry and, you know, even for me, as you mentioned, King Tubby's, the electronics development of the sound system is akin to Sony music. I have a comparative study between Jamaica and Japan, right? As to how Japan innovated the electronics to become this giant in the world, and Jamaica was on par with the same kind of electronic innovation, except that we were never invested in, and we didn't have the geographical um, space, the geographical mass or population to self, perpetuate it. But the fact that Japan and Sony music is now, electronics and music
Mm, right,
are industries. We don't have an electronics industry, but we have electronic geniuses that
right,
really only display their genius through the sound system, through the rhythms, through the music. So part of this
right.
campaign is also
Maxine, just
to
one little other
highlight
point
that.
I want to make quickly. Tubby's himself was one of the best maker of amplifier in Jamaica and the Caribbean.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So if he could have developed a company like a Sony that just made boxes globally and made other innovations, earphones. When you see where all of these innovations come from technicians that are hired by a company, you understand what I'm saying? And then they bring these innovators in and they come up with new things. When I forgot, this guy told me, when he showed me how many different innovations that are even still being made in Jamaica, even these guys that are dismantling the smartphones downtown. You understand what I'm saying? In a different
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
society, these people would be hired by a technical firm to innovate. They're just innovating, just to fix something old to, make us be input. But that's one of the major points about Waterhouse and the Dancehall 50 is to link the electronic technical development. That's why when Rocky spoke about the amount of engineers that came out of Tubby's, scientists, Philip Smart, Bobby Digital, Jammies, and probably more and more, and they then became the foundation of the rhythm, what makes the body of work that
Mm-hmm.
is dancehall. It's huge. Once you do the mapping. You know what I mean?
Let me say
I'm
this.
excited.
Let me say this. We have all this information. When you're going to Waterhouse, you see the heritage just lay before you. We have all of this information. Why nothing is happening in terms
Structure.
of in terms of creating an organization, or is it that our artists? I say our artists, because I firmly believe that there should be opportunities for the artists to interact with the community, which they do. But I said nothing happening.
You
Nothing
have to have,
happening.
that's what I'm saying, Mikey. You have to understand who the artists are and what the industry is. People think that the artists make up the industry. They're just assets of an industry. So you have to focus and say, where is the Jamaica music recording industry? How is it structured? That's what you have to plug into. And this industry owns the artists. They own the masters. They
That's a
own all this creative
that's a key point,
output.
Maxine. That's a key point because you have to separate the two. You can't look at it as okay, it's just an industry. It's the same thing. I mean, Maxine, you have done a masterful job as always, right? When you lay it out, right? And I guess it's a matter of time because you can get into even greater details because time don't allow. But two things I want to mention, right, really quick, is and to Rupi's point too, right? And why I have to go with the philosophical aspect is because that's where everything is birthed. Everything is birthed out of the philosophical aspect, right? Because what happens is that when you look at the history of Jamaica, right, and where we come from, where we've been coming from, right, and what it spurned, right? What happens is that, I mean, and why you recall, we cannot address reggae and its development without looking at those roots, right? We cannot forget, right, what the artists went through, even to become who they were or who they are right now, right? And who they became, right? As the Bob Marley and the so on, the persecution, all of that, the poverty, right? In which they were birthed and all of that, which is why it is so important to catalog all of these historical spaces in the community for each and every artist. Not for the artist personally, but for our own education around this thing. Remember, we still have an educational system which don't even speak to the music of reggae and its development, right? And what it contributes to the culture, right? All of this is that it is looked at in isolation, but it has to be looked at more deeply, right? And I'm glad Rupi mentioned Clinton Hutton because Clinton himself is an artist, right? And when you look at, okay, we're talking about reggae, but we can't talk about reggae without talking about the drum and bass. Why the drum and bass rhythm so identify with us, right? All of this stuff, right? We cannot talk about it without talking about the visual art, right? The capo and all of these people, because all of these people was people who were artists too, right? Who helped to bring together all of this, right? So it has a real deep philosophical aspect of it, which must be highlighted because that is what is missing in our whole education.
I want to say something a little different from probably what most people are talking about. My concern is arise from one of the things that Maxine raised about Trenchtown. The fact that with a high visibility at Trenchtown, with the connection to Bob Marley, the connection to Culture Yard, we still, one of the challenges that that kind of visibility is not converting into something that is uplifting the community in a wider sense. And if we apply the same kind of thing to Waterhouse, you'll see the same kind of situation. A lot of creative people come from the space, a lot of recognition in the media and social media and other places, but it's just not reflecting in the kind of development that should have been taking place in these communities. And I think part of it has to do with government policy over the years. I mean, reggae and music, the music business has been a industry that's centered around individual artists. When a creative person creating anything, him not really depend upon government and whatever. I'm just doing thing and make him name and whatever. But when you look at how the music develop and how government usually deal with culture, when you connect the thing to tourism, you find that historically government always use culture to service the tourism product. They would get the artists from the various communities, whether it was from the Mento era to the Ska era or whatever, and they perform in the hotels on the North Coast. And they perform to visiting royalties and so forth. But in terms of trying to develop an industry that benefit these people who are doing the performances, the government's focus over the years was not towards that kind of thing. So it's like a total exploitation of the artists. And the big companies who invest in music, most of them came and adopt the same kind of policy like the governments, right? Wherein they get the artists to perform, to do an album, to do shows, right? But the whole development phase of focusing on the artist and where the artists come from has not been part of the package of these people. So you find that even though Waterhouse and Kingston 11 and Trenchtown produce all these big names and all these people with all this kind of creativity, the communities where they come from have never been seen as something, as a cultural heritage to preserve, right? We grew up in Tower Hill and Waterhouse. In Tower Hill, you had places like Hometown Lawn, where you used to have cultural performances, stage shows, all of those kind of things, right? But you don't get the kind of recognition for those places, right? When it comes to historical heritage, these are not the recognized places that the whole industry focuses on. You know, as Fitzroy said, music saved a lot of the people and a lot of the youths from these areas. I remember growing up in these areas, there's only two things most youth used to gravitate to. Either a youth run we go a racetrack, go turn jockey or groom, or him involved in a music. Those were the two things. Those were the two things that really keep the youths away from being involved in the whole political violence thing. I remember even up to 1976, Jomali Avenue, even when the war going on between Jomali Waterhouse and Tower Hill, one of the safest spaces in that era was Jomali Avenue, because you had youth from both sides, from Tower Hill, Waterhouse, is Jomali Avenue used right in front of Tubby's Gate. We used to play six-a-side football, right? is when the thing break out in a much bigger way now than that kind of broke up because man from Waterhouse I start label. So even some of the Waterhouse you them as label right, and man from our side I say we are PNP, right, and youth have to kind of ease off. But that was one of the safest road because there was a Tubbies as a gravitational point, right? And it kind of created a bridge in the community, where a safe space.
Ratigan, I've heard from you, bro. I've heard from you, and I know you're in the music, You play music a lot, So
different.
it's something I
But
could hear your voice, brother.
no, you know what? Listening to Maxine and Lass and Patrick and Rocky and Rupert, it was a nostalgic trip for me because a lot of the things that I'm talking about is like me live it. Like Rocky mentioned that people used to, as a youth, used to go to the dance. You couldn't go in, but the people who promote the dance used to have you to come clean up. And we used to have a little cleanup crew we used to run with a brother named Bull. I think him come from the capture. We used to go at the dance them and we used to stand up outside. We can't go in prime time, but when the dance done, they make we come in and we clean up, take the buckle stop, and we used to get whatever left in the curry goat pot and get a drink and things. So we used to do that a lot. We talk about a whole bunch of famous artists, but there's a lot of talented people who never get no recognition out of, and some of them get a little recognition. People like Trevor Rankin come from Binns Road. And then you have a brother named King Everall, talented youth singer, but you don't hear much about him. Rupert talked about the 15-piece of Baba. 15-piece Sata. Remember 15-piece of Baba, So it's like, I make notes while now go along. And there's a bass player. Some people said that he was more talented than Robert Shakespeare. A brother named Ranchi, we come from over Towel. Used to play. Yeah, used to play for a band, I think Skin, Flesh and Bones or something. Used to play. Yeah, used to go and I come and them brother and brother named Dirks. I'm Dirks used to play football. Cause we used to play football for Waterhouse under 13. So, let me see what I notes for me here. Penn Avenue. Then we have a son named King Attorney from over, I think, a Cockburn Penn will later become known as Socialist Roots. That's the first we're going to hear it.
Solatani.
Yeah, Solatani, yeah. Actually, the name King Attorney and people call it
King Attorney,
yeah. And remember,
start out as Solatani and
then King Attorney, then Socialist Roots. And Rocky did mention Rocky mentioned something else. It will come to me, but it's like, Jammies too. Me remember I used to go to Tubbies because I have a friend who used to work on Jammies. Jammies used to have a Triumph. I have a friend who used to work on him Triumph named John who come from Ashoka Road. Shelly and great granduncle. And used to go with him at Tubbies. Because I used to live 1 block over from Tubbies, Tubbies there, Drumali Avenue. And if you just leave Tubbies and go down to Penwood Road and make a left, the first corner you come to, you have Varma Road on your right hand side and you have Penwood Crescent on your left hand side. We used to live at Penwood Crescent, right where the bar, that big yard. Actually, see the picture behind me. There's some used to live right around the corner from Jammies. Remember from Tubbies. Remember when Jammies was just Jammies. Then all of a sudden, he turned Prince Jammies. And now I'm a King Jammies. And on a sad note, it just based upon my intelligence and what I hear is Tubbies passed away tragically at the hands of somebody he knew. A friend of mine, now call on name. And he was a dispute and man in his life. And then another friend hear about it and take care of that brother there. So, and then that friend, the police kill that friend there. So most of the people I grew up with, them dead or them in a prison. Sad, but it's true. But thanks for taking me down memory lane, I really appreciate it. And Rocky, all of the people you talk about, the old man and all of them people, yeah, me know them.
Yeah, man, you're supposed to, man. My father just did at 95-year-old, and all these virgins that I tell about. Even where Last Crawford just said, you said the bridge, it was really a bridge. Because when you leave Jamal Avenue, at Tower Lane,
Right.
because the road that will come down, that's you have Bongo T, you
Joshua
know.
Edward. Yeah, man. Bongo T
That's
right
the
on the,
avenue. So
right
once
on
you
the
come over
bump.
there, so as I'm sure you say, our community, it wasn't labeled as Waterhouse or Tower. We were a center community. 'Cause remember, you have Miss Duncan Basic School, the first
Miss
basic
Duncan, me
school.
used to go in a bridge.
You understand? Run a Marmalade, the
I
first.
went to Miss Duncan Basic School, you know.
That's my first basic school too.
Yes, man.
You understand? Before we go a Bagger Park Basic School. You understand? Then you have the Penwood Progressive Youth Club, which is the first youth club run at 13 Wentworth Avenue. So all these things are history. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
man. Yeah, man.
Those times when you say wheelers, it was Wentworth Avenue, where you have the Bull, you have Mellow, you have Apple, you have Twee the first killer,
Mm-hmm.
where Trinity killed the first youth of Trinity killed
Much.
in a Waterhouse. Cause they used to come over yard. And them some mother used to tell me say, don't go on a wheelers. Wheelers mean the gun, where the gunman them there. Cause run a wheelers, you find the Rima 13. Youth from Rima, Jungle, Tivoli, and yard come and them gather this up. And them stay around that community there, around the road there. When you come to Bishop Avenue now and Balmaji Avenue and Jamali Avenue and Penistone and them know where you find the Christian people and the people where I go to work and the nurses and people are saying them, you go to school and we fall in that and they have the Rastaman them, you understand? And that's now the Ducky Simpson and the Root and Lapsy Castle and you Mundell them used to come. And the Dan, I remember even Errol Dunkley, you know, them man used to come to Waterhouse, come check Dan Carlos. You understand? So it's very imperative for us as the Virgin said, as a Maxine said too, me even though I don't even think Jamaica have a music industry. I don't even see it as an industry, believe me. Sometimes I don't see it as an industry. It's more a kill industry to me.
But you know
Because
what?
all the pioneers them don't get no credits.
Let me say this. Let me say this. I've been sitting here and listening to all of you guys, and I must say this. The first conclusion I reached was that our MP is a lazy person. And I say that because Eddie Siaga, Eddie Siaga went into West Kingston, and regardless of what you might think about Eddie Siaga spent some time in developing culture in West Kingston, the Tivoli dance group and what have you. I think our problem is we need a more aggressive MP who will recognize the asset that we have and develop programs around it, because leadership in all of this, leadership is vital. Leadership is vital. You understand me? And we're not getting the leadership with regards to things like the cultural heritage in the community. And it's there. So I really want to thank Maxine, for taking on this initiative and trying to link up Waterhouse and all of that. But it's going to take more.
Nita,
Go ahead, bro.
it's that initiative. Because remember, our music is an anti-establishment music. As the Virgin just said, it fight against the government. It sing against the politicians. Because we see what the politicians did to our community and involve our Virgin. Well, I know. We have to have a community. We have to have a leader like Michael Manley and Derek. What name? David Core. Apart from the older those leaders who come to Waterhouse, I've not seen none of them. No O.T. Williams, none of them, because those men link with the gangsters and the politicians. They don't link with the people in the community. You understand? Because even with the bridge, where the bridge talk about a 1979 that break, That's why I tell us that the music is so powerful. Because I witnessed a bridge named Bali shoot my brother in his ears right in front of my eye, in front of my father and my sister. With an AK-47. Shoot him. Because my brother said, nah, deal politics. He come from Tower. And yet, said, Mr. Youth, the man in my right from bicycle, and I'm the one of the biggest producer He might produce Wayne Smith, he might produce Junior Reid, he might produce King Everall, he might produce Anthony Redrose. And I say, how powerful the music is. That man must kill, shoot my brother. Man, that man become friends through the music. Till he was killed. That's how powerful the music is. Now, when a politician come in a Waterhouse, Mr. Elton, I respect that man. I know why. I see him come to my community and walk to every house, every single house on every road. You don't for the PNP, or you don't for the Labour right. He introduced himself as a new member of parliament for our community. Them don't for the nothing in a Waterhouse, because now got change to Labour right. Never. What? And the only leader that build road in a Waterhouse is Michael Mann. If you go in the Waterhouse to the Harlem Road where you say Barbara Green, and they mash up. They mash up. They're not doing nothing.
Yeah,
Because the people, when it come to election day, they're not going to win. All of them don't do nothing. They will win. And the same thing with Towile. The same thing with Cockburn Pen. Look for Andrew Holness. Look for Andrew Holness. When Andrew Holness come in a power and come with that thing, them give you a chance. Him turn PNP, a Labour right, to Samakande and Buckers. Remember, the PNP government, a PNP MP was ruling that for years until Andrew Holness come and win it. And why win it? Because everybody work in the community. Take away the politics from it. Andrew Holness. That's why I see him turn Prime Minister, He might do whatever, but I can tell you this. Because we used to do that. Because we learn in our school, say, political science govern the community and the country. Where that man like, where you go party thing now, then it's different.
It's right.
And we're not educating the youth to listen. Because we used to do civics in our school. We used to do civics in school. We have a student companion up to today. And you look at the back of it, it tell you who the leader of Barbados, what the leader of Trinidad, and Jamaica and all these Caribbean countries. After know. Most youth in Jamaica, if you ask them who the minister of them, who's the MP for them come to them, don't know.
Yeah, but the point I'm making, my brother, Maxine is on the platform today. And she's on the platform today because of the work that Chris and I have been engaged in. This is just two individuals, and I'm saying that it shouldn't just be us. It shouldn't just be us. We need this sort of leadership. We need this sort of leadership.
Yeah, but
Hear my view, Mikey. We know the political approach to development in the communities. The approach is you have to be behind them, you have to support them, you have to be one of them yes man or something like that for them focus on your development. We as people who live in these areas, just like how we were activists in our communities and we try influence certain kind of change, I think we have to apply the same approach to cultural change in the communities, where we not see ourselves having to depend on the politicians alone, right? If them want to join in the progress that we are trying to make, that's okay. What Maxine is doing, it's something we need to congratulate and see how we as people from these communities, how we can get involved in creating the change through culture and getting other people involved in the process. Because it is possible. It is possible for us, just like how most of us did influence and use our weight to bring people for believing in some of these politicians. We can use influence to bring people for believing in themselves, to believe them can start a cultural program in a Waterhouse and Kingston 11 that can grow and influence the situation, influence the violence, influence the economic situation, and bring recognition to youth so them can say an alternative to gun violence and other form of things where them get involved in. So our challenge is to look at ways in which, we can promote the music and the culture in these areas and get other people on board, get even the politicians on board to see it as viable, to see it as something rich and meaningful that can create change in these communities. And we have to look upon how we can do it, what kind of structures need to happen, who we can link with. I mean, we know that art and culture most of the time is a kind of individualistic kind of thing. But we have to see how we can bring in some of the artists from these areas and get them involved in a more benevolent kind of mind frame where them can see them community as important and something them need to contribute to, not just them own development. Outside of that, I don't think we're going to get anything happening in these communities.
Well, I want to say that.
Fully on point, last. Fully on point.
Very true.
Rupi I said something.
We not hear you, Rupi. We not hear you.
Not hearing you.
Mute.
No, still
No,
not
something
hearing.
happened.
Yeah, I think it might be. Oh, I'm gone.
Well,
I'm gone.
I'm gone.
Well, mhm.
All right, I'm forward now.
You speaking?
We still not hear you, Rupi.
I hear you.
Still not
You
hear
probably
you.
have to reboot.
Yeah, go ahead, Maxine. You were saying.
No, I usually watch Rattigan's program on Saturday, leading into today. And it was interesting yesterday about Constitution and who owns Jamaica, and even in this conversation, who owns what, you know what I mean? Like the people, if you own something, you have to mature now to set up structures, what they call NGOs. You understand? You, the civic people, need to structure yourself into ownership. I guess there must be something like that because I hear about SDC, CDC. These are supposed to be more activist scenarios, not just in terms of committees, but how do we actually own? Like, if the name Waterhouse, who is going to own it? If we create brand value in Waterhouse and start to create merchandise and create opportunities and create a Waterhouse tour and create this and create that. Yes, it cannot be the government, because the government, because of the corruption index, which is across the world, the only way you're going to arrest it is to create, these ownership
Put the
platforms.
power in the hands of the people.
Yes, but even now, I mean, everyone here on this platform could be a co-owner of this concept to move it forward, and this ownership can then negotiate independently with the international industry where the economy rests. That's what you need to understand, that the industry of the music is not in Jamaica. I mean, there's some in Jamaica, but the majority of it is in international spaces. And I know that when I interfaced with the United Nations recently, they said Jamaica is one of the weakest countries globally that have developed the NGO platform. You understand?
Yeah, all
To
right.
represent the interests of the people in various areas. I'm just here now saying music, and this dependency on the government, which may be because of, I don't know, like some psychologists would have to come in on this
Okay.
path.
On that note, I think this is an issue that we have to continue discussing because there are some practical things that we need to do. Okay, and Maxine, you're committed to continue the discussion along, this Waterhouse thing and the rhythms thing. So, having said that, I want to shift the conversation now to Ratigan because Ratigan has an important piece of news to share with us. Ratigan.
Mikey,
One second though, before
Mikey,
you
just before you move, in order to move this thing from just like having Maxine come and talk each time about this thing, right? We need to, say where, in order to get this thing practically moving, ask Maxine what needs to be done.
I told Mikey.
What needs to be done right now?
Last, and Patrick, the challenge that we face is that Ratigan has to leave in about 30 minutes.
Yeah. I understand that.
No, 4 minutes.
I just wanted to mention something. I just wanted to mention one thing here, right? Because I realized that you cut off Maxine on a very crucial point, and it's not the first time Maxine has visited this point, right? Because she did it last time too. But what I want to say to you is that I want you to make a note that we come back to this at some later point.
Yeah,
we really get into a discussion around the very point she just made.
Yes, that is definitely. It's something Maxine and I we have that understanding, because this is something. It's not something that we're talking about. It's something that we are actively pursuing with input from Chris and what have you. So we have a lot more information to share. But I don't want to lose Ratigan. Ratigan has
that's all right.
something important to talk about. Ratigan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. And let me just say thanks to all of you who sit through the marathon sessions with me every Saturday. Maxine says she watch it, and I know it must be for some people. Some people say they can't. It's riveting, and gripping. They can't get out of their seats. But I instruct people. I advise them. I cajole them. I ask them to be disciplined about watching Ratigan. If you can watch it in one sitting on a Saturday, great. If you cannot, just watch it one hour a day. And by the time you get to Friday, Saturday, you finish it and you're ready for the the next edition. But here's where we are. The Diaspora, we've been labeled as talk shops for decades. And we sit and we commiserate and we identify the issues and we talk about solutions, but for some reason we just can't seem to get results from our solutions or results from our discussions. We talk and it's almost like a venting session. We talk and then we feel good and we walk away. In some instances though, we've contacted the Jamaican government about crime, poverty, corruption, service deliveries, etc. And much to our consternation, we've been rebuffed. And when I say we, I'm talking about collectively. The conversations, they've never really included me, but I know people who have taken the steps to deal with the Jamaican government. So 2016, a group of people went down to Jamaica to talk about crime. Nothing happened. In 2017, 2018, I was there talking to them about setting up a fusion center. In fact, I sat with the Prime Minister for 3 hours. That came to no avail. And there have been other efforts made. So a group of concerned Jamaicans in the diaspora decided to do something about it. And one of them is Dr. Rupert Francis. And he wrote a letter to the Jamaican ambassador to the United States, the Honorable Audrey Marks. And he CC'd it, I think, to about 140 people. And essentially he said, look, here are the issues affecting Jamaica and Jamaicans. We don't think you're doing anything about it. And as a result, we are going to protest. And we are going to talk to your international partners, your donor agencies, donor countries, donor institutions. And we're going to let them know that there's a serious problem with how funds are distributed in Jamaica, i.e. kleptocracy and corruption. Now, that one letter garnered more interest than he ever thought or anyone ever thought, because it's for the first time the Jamaican government has been faced with the possibility of international coverage on what's going on in Jamaica beyond, Amnesty International and the corruption index and so on and so forth, because Jamaica doesn't pay attention to that. Those are 9-day wonders. But when you have a group of Jamaicans protesting against the Jamaican government overseas, now that's news. So they started this. They used to have an advisory, diaspora advisory council or committee.
Yes.
And the Jamaican government decided in 2020 that they would dispose of that and they would establish something new called the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council and the Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council. Now, what's interesting about that? It was established in January 2020. There were 28 members globally. Of the 28 members, 20 of them were appointed by the government of Jamaica. They came out with this thing called terms of reference and a global Jamaica diaspora policy. And when you look at the terms of reference, there are 4 people who run that organization. Of the 4 people running that organization, 3 of them are Jamaican government officials. Think about that. You have a diaspora organization being run by 3 Jamaican government officials. They're not diasporan members. They live in Jamaica. They run the thing. The head of the agency is the junior minister in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And he has the right to fire people who represent me, right? Why? Because now they appoint a little more than half of the members. So we said, no. This group doesn't represent us, because in the Northeast, from Maine to Virginia, an area comprised of about, close to 2 million Jamaicans. Less than 100 people voted in that election. Why? Because they were dissatisfied going back to 2020 that the Jamaican government came in with such heavy-handed features in terms of establishing, setting up this thing, directing it, controlling it. So people just give up. In the UK, they have approximately 800,000 Jamaicans. Less than 160, I believe, voted. In fact, one member got 17 votes. So we said, them no represent we. We are the real diaspora. And when I say we, I'm talking about concerned Jamaicans who they have different platforms. So we got together and then we said we have to do something about this. So next week, this week, Friday, January 19th, between the hours of 8 a.m. to 1 p.m., we will be demonstrating in front of the Jamaican consulate located at 44 Flagler Street, or West Flagler Street in Miami. And we're asking people to come out and support the effort. Once that's done, we are then going to speak to our parliamentarians, not the Jamaican parliamentarians, the parliamentarians in Canada and in the UK, and our congressional representatives in the US. The beauty about doing it this year, now in the US, is that this year is an election year. So our representatives, they will pay attention to what we have to say. And some of the things we're going to have to say, Jamaica should be, Jamaican politicians, they should be very afraid, because there's an act called the Magnitsky Act. And it's been used since, I think it came into existence 2014, and there about a couple of revisions, but it was used to the best of my recollection just last November, December, against Haitian politicians. And here's what it does. It says that if you've been involved in kleptocracy, if you've been involved in corruption, if you've been involved in human rights abuse as a government, then your leaders are subject to having their visas revoked and their assets seized. That's significant, because we think we have a very solid case against the Prime Minister, but not only against the Prime Minister, against the police commissioner, the JDF commander, the ladies over there, the Minister of National Security, the Prime Minister, and the Governor General. Why? Because they've all been involved in this unlawful, unconstitutional police bogus police initiative called state of emergency. Now, under the Constitution of Jamaica, state of emergency is only allowed under 3 conditions: war, insurrection, natural disaster. It's not allowed constitutionally to be used for police action. And if you notice, every time they declare one, they said, oh, there's an uptick in violence, and so we're going to send out the troops. You can't use it for that. In 2020, there was a case that came before the Supreme Court, and it was held that states of emergency, as declared, as implemented by the government of Jamaica, are unconstitutional. That decision was appealed. The Court of Appeal allowed the lower court's decision to stand. So right now in Jamaica, states of emergency are unconstitutional. What happened since that court decision? There have been 3 states of emergency declared. And keep in mind that a state of emergency cannot take place until it's proclaimed by the Governor General. If he says no, then there is no state of emergency. And they've declared 3. So we believe, and what have they done during the state of emergency? They have held people indefinitely without charging them. That's a human rights abuse. So we believe we have a case against them for that. Furthermore, when you come to the business about kleptocracy and corruption, there's a case going back to 2010. The corruption, it came to light around 2016, 17, thereabouts, by Zara Burton, where she alleged that the prime minister was involved in awarding contracts or assisting, because he recommended that a member of his constituency get some contracts. And he got contracts all over the country, including some contracts to do bushing down in Montego Bay. So it was investigated by the Integrity Commission. And at the end, the corruption prosecutor said she didn't have enough evidence to prosecute him. Why? Because they interviewed him twice. It was pure strategy. It was poor strategy. You don't interview him and get some incriminatory stuff, and then you go back and then you have interview him and clean it up. At least the culture I'm from, the law enforcement culture I'm from, you don't do that. You don't give them a second chance to come clean. So they released that was disposed of. But then you have a situation where it's 2021 and 2022 statutory declarations have not been verified by the very body, anti-corruption body that he created in 2017, 2018. So we think that we have some very strong facts to provide to the lawmakers to say, listen, we need you to get the State Department to revoke visas and to seize assets. And we know that there are some assets in St. Lucia and elsewhere. So that's going to be taken care of. In addition to which, there are other laws. There are other laws where you can actually arrest a foreign government officials for stealing from his people. So we have a small group of people here, most of them lawyers, and we're doing the research to come up with the laws that we think will be applicable to the situation in Jamaica, but not just in the US, because we're finding out that the laws that will address these situations in Jamaica, they are reflected in the laws in the UK and Canada. They have companion laws as well. So we plan to do this demonstration. It's going to be momentous. It's going to be historic. First time, this Friday. Then we go to the parliamentarians and the congressmen and congresswomen. Then there is going to be another protest in Washington, D.C. Then it's going to be followed by another one in New York, and then another one in Toronto, and another one in London. And it is my recommendation to this group that I'm working with that it should be death by 1,000 cuts. We shouldn't have, a global demonstration where we do all of these other places on the same day. No, I think we should do one now. It will be a constant reminder, and it will always be in the media. We're doing one Friday. We'll do another one maybe 5, 6, 8 weeks from now. We'll do another one, and we just keep it going like that, because what's going on in Jamaica is just deplorable. The fence behind me that you see there, and by the way, Rocky, that fence is still there, right? The picture was taken mid last year. Them things are not supposed to happen. We still have relatives live at Waterhouse. Still have friends live at Waterhouse. And by the way, me used to live at upper compound. Me used to live up at McKinley Crescent. So I live in a labor right neighborhood. We live up on Dilston Avenue in front of Erie. By the way, me talk to Erie. Erie, you're right. Erie are the one who bring Barrington Levy come our Waterhouse, right? From Penwood Crescent, we live at 3 different addresses. 41 Penwood Crescent, 39 Penwood Crescent, 6 Penwood Crescent. Not to mention, I used to live over in the Maxwell Avenue here. A million places. I think in my 17 years of living in Jamaica, I think I moved like something like about 12 times, right?
For your father, we used to come buy the meat from.
No, that time it's a gun clay.
Yeah, man, Mr. Gun. Okay, I know your father.
That.
Okay.
Yeah, I flatted them.
Yeah, that's our mother.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you know the place. So that's what we're planning to do, because we are sick and tired of just sitting here being a talk shop and just talk, and nothing gets done. Also, we started an organization called One Jamaica Legal Defense Foundation, the primary purpose of which is to hold governments, not just this one, but every government going forward, accountable. And how are we doing that? How do we plan to do that? We plan to do that through lawsuits, whether we can find jurisdiction in Jamaica or elsewhere. The second one is through a public relations campaign, and I refer to the beach issue as one of the main focuses of that campaign, where Jamaicans don't have unfettered free access to the beaches. A tourist from Europe will have access to the best beaches in Jamaica, whereas we, right, our foreparents, some of them died, and and we don't have access to the beaches. We don't understand that. The third one is background investigations, where we have identified certain politicians we believe to be corrupt. And I'll say this, and I'll say that I know the group is watching. We have begun the background investigation already, and we're coming up with some interesting things which will be revealed shortly. That's 3. 4, protests, and 5, interact with international donors, organizations, governments, etc. Because when you look at the amount of money that's been disbursed to Jamaica to help primarily vulnerable communities like the one behind me, they have not received the benefit of those funds. Traditionally, 20% of donations, you use that for administrative costs. That's the standard. In Jamaica, it's 80% that they use for administrative costs. What's administrative costs? Administrative costs is when it comes in. These politicians, they're like vultures. They know it's coming in, and so they either form consultancies, or they have their friends or family members, and then the contract gets awarded to some of these consultancies. And in the case where research has to be done, then they go to the university. And what I'm being told, the university gets about 2% of the contract. So you see where the rest of it is. Only 20% would get disbursed to help these vulnerable communities. During COVID, Jamaica received in excess of $750 million in loans from the IDB, IMF, and the World Bank. Loans. And the purpose of those loans was to serve 2 communities: business community to keep the economy afloat, and vulnerable community. What did the government do for the vulnerable community? They said, listen, you have to have access to the internet, you have to have a bank account, you have to have this, you have to have that. How many people in Jamaica have that? So we don't know where that money went. And there's been no accounting for that money. But here's the sad part. Some of the people that the money was intended for did not receive the money, and their children, themselves, their children, or their children's children will have to pay back that loan. That's how cruel this government is in terms of taking care of people. When you talk about service deliveries, look at the hospitals. Need I say more? When you look at the national security, they said that about 2 years ago, Minister Chang said, I am committed to spending $1.2 billion to transform the security architecture of this country. 1.2 billion US dollars. And yet, we have policemen who still have to buy them uniform. Don't have bulletproof vests. Body cams we just talked about earlier. Vehicles. They just got about 3 months ago. They got a donation from the Japanese government to buy something like 30 vehicles and 2 ambulances. And you said to yourself, then don't forget in 2016 that fiasco with the police cars that they bought, right? I mean, I sat down with them and I said, why would you buy a car that I could buy off of a lot and give it to the police when you know the stress and the strain that vehicle is going to undergo? That vehicle is going to be on the road, I don't know, 12, 14, 16 hours every day. Why wouldn't you go to the Japanese government and say, listen, so instead of buying 100 cars, you go to the Japanese government, instead of buying 100 Japanese cars from Japanese dealerships, why wouldn't you go to the Japanese government and say, look, we have a relationship, talk to Toyota, talk to whomever, and see if we can get 50 vehicles that are designed for the Jamaican terrain, for the Jamaican roads, for the use, so we get more sturdier suspension, we get a stronger engine, we get a more durable transmission. Why didn't we do that? I've spoken to some of the people involved with that contract, and you know them said to me, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But that doesn't help the situation to just admit to me and say you're right. So I have a lot on my mind when it comes to righting the wrongs of Jamaica. I know, as one of my bosses used to say, it's like turning a battleship in sand. It's going to be a long, long, long and arduous task. But here's what happened. I am committed to it. And the good part about it is that I have people around me who are similarly and equally dedicated and committed to the cause. So we believe that, this is a good fight. And as can't remember his name now because my mind is just racing, where he said, you need to get in good trouble. This is good trouble. And so now they're having all kinds of meetings, the government, and they're putting out all kinds of statements and they're contradicting themselves. But let me just say before I leave that, there's one politician I'd really like to thank for making this happen, and that is Minister of Information, Robert Morgan. I want to thank him for working with us, and I hope they're listening, because had it not been for him, we would not have gone down this path. He said some things that spurred us. It got the intellectual juices flowing, and we started saying, well, wait a minute, if the minister is saying this, maybe we should go look at some of the things and that he's referring to, or some of the things that he's alluding to, or what, and we did. And so that's how we came up with all of this. So Minister Morgan, from the bottom of my heart, sir, I want to thank you. We owe you an eternal debt of gratitude, and continue doing what you're doing. Please continue to give us those clues and just point us in the right direction. Thank you, Mikey. I'll be here for another 13 minutes. So if you have any questions.
Well, I ask the others, any feedback?
I have one question. Before you take the mic, Patrick, I want to ask a question. In what you said, do you indict the opposition too?
Oh, well, let me tell you something.
With the SOE, because I know so the Prime Minister cannot just do say you have a state of emergency without him consult the opposition party, who must say no or yes. So I want to know if he was indicted.
You raise a very good point. You raise a very good point. Here's what happened. We've been talking about the Magnitsky Act, right? And we said it in our group, because let me just be clear. I'm non-partisan. I've never voted in Jamaica. I had no interest in Jamaican politics until about 2 years ago, right? We retired from the FBI. I guess we don't have nothing to do. So I practice law, and at the same time, I have a whole bunch of free time. I'm just start taking interest in this. Now, here is when it comes to SOEs. Here's what's going on. If you notice, they haven't said anything, the government, because they've read the law and they know it's applicable. The opposition hasn't said anything, and you know why, and you just touched it. In Jamaica, for a state of emergency to be declared, it's declared by Parliament, but the government, they have the overwhelming majority of the votes, so they don't really need them to. They don't need them to pass a state of emergency. However, and that lasts for 14 days. So right now, with the numbers in Parliament, the government can get up and say, we're going to establish a state of emergency. They have the votes. They don't need the opposition. Then they go to the Governor General, and he says yes, and he proclaims it. Now here's where it gets interesting. Once the 14-day period is over, to extend that state of emergency, you have to get the Senate involved. You have to get 2/3 of both houses. They cannot get 2/3 the way it's configured. The numbers, they cannot get the 2/3 out of the Senate, right? Unless the opposition join forces. One person has to join forces with them. Now, since before 2020, I think before the present leader of the opposition came on board, the opposition supported the state of emergency. They extended it. Now, when you extend it, now remember, state of emergency is only for 14 days, but when you extend it, it's extended for 90 days. So they're culpable as well. So that's why you don't hear anything from them.
Okay.
So when we push it, we're going to ask for visa revocations for everyone who was involved with that. No exception. No exception. And we notice that they haven't said anything, but that's fine, because we are going to say something. Because we are standing on the side of truth, justice, and equality. And we cannot go there and say, well, we're only doing it for the government. Because guess what? The government didn't do it by itself when we got the extension. They got the assistance of the opposition. So, if the government is something, I tell you something. Somebody tell me one time, them say, Rattigan, you managed to do something with the politicians and can't do themselves. I'm saying, what that? Them say, you managed to get them for dislike you. Both of them managed to dislike you, because when I applied for the police position, it was PNP who turned me down first. It was under Portia Miller Simpson government that turned me down. And then this government turned me down. So, and remember now, I never voted. I don't care. I have no axe to grind. I just want to make sure that the people are taken care of. And once you take care of the Jamaican people, you will never hear from me. But as long as you fail to provide service delivery, as long as you keep making these promises that you can't fulfill, and as long as you keep robbing the dues of the poor people, you will hear from me. You take from rich people, I really don't have a problem. I that's not my focus, because they can fend for themselves. Poor people can't fend for themselves. They're suffering. I mean, Maxine, you heard some of the calls yesterday on some of the calls I received. People are crying.
Right,
So I hope that answers your question, Rocky.
Yeah, my man, answer my question very, very much so.
Rattigan,
Yes, sir.
why would you think these guys would want to employ you as a commissioner of police and you talk about lack of politician?
Yeah. I was hoping that we'd have a lot more honest people in positions of power, but Anderson, no. Because I tell you what, I was prepared to lock them up. Last, I have a person that I talk to, a person who used to be in charge at the FBI office for Jamaica. The man came to me and he said, listen, there are only 2 people I trust in the JCF. And he gave me the names, and I actually spoke to one of them. And he said, I have the files. And when you're ready, talk to me. I'll turn them over to you. And I won't let people know what happened after. But you see, I was prepared to come down there and lock people up. Trust me. I was.
Them sitting in your face. Them sitting in your face.
They have no use for somebody like me.
Here's the thing, though. You have a Jamaican saying, a old Jamaican saying, we say, not everything good feet, good for talk.
True.
Right? There are a couple things I was about to say and also ask you a question, but I'd rather not put it out on blast over the year. I'll talk to you further on that.
Fair enough.
Right? But at the same time, let me say this, right? We should never assume, for any reason, right, that they are being neglectful, or they just simply lying down, waiting on us to make a move, right, and then respond. They are planning ahead, right? That's the first thing. The other thing I want to mention is this. Right? Here's a big mistake that we keep making. And I hear Michael, every time Michael make that remark, I cringe, right? Because it's a real dangerous remark to make, right? politicians are not leaders. Politicians cannot be leaders. And we don't have the time here for me to go into why that is not possible. Right? We need to stop referring to politicians as leaders. The government is not the leader. Right? You elect them to govern. You don't elect them to lead. Right? So that's all I'll say on that for now.
Well, let me just say this. People have asked me about personal security and all that stuff, and I'll be frank with you, I'm not worried. I think with my experience and with my contacts, I'll be fine. But putting that aside, I go back to something that Martin Luther King Jr. said, and I'm invoking his name and what he said as a result is celebrated tomorrow. To paraphrase him, if you haven't found a reason to die, then life is not worth living. I am willing to die for these people behind me. I am committed to dying for these people behind me. It's a death well worth it. I've lived most of my life already. It's time we start looking out for people. It's time we stop being selfish and extend that hand and help people. I could have turned my back. I could have walked away. This space could have been occupied by somebody else other than me. But why me? Because I am those people. When you talk about sufferation, I feel it because I have suffered too. When you talk about living in the ghetto, I know what it means to live. I can identify with it. I'm not somebody who come from uptown and have this benevolent spirit and say, well, then I'm just going to help my brother, man. No, I am these people. And so it's hard, and I would never try to separate myself from them. This is not something that I feel like doing. This is something that I must do. I stand on the shoulders of people who died so that I can sit here and have this conversation with you guys. And so that I can do the things that I'm doing now. And if I can inspire just one person to follow my footsteps, I would have succeeded in my quest to bring justice and equality and all those philosophical things that we talk about to these people. But I am more than being philosophical. I want to see it in terms of reality. I am tired of the speeches like a string of pearls. Tired of those speeches. I want to see real change. And then, and only then, will I be quiet. Then and only then will I be quiet. So, and some people say, oh, you give out your strategy. Hell no. Hell no. I'm only telling them about a fraction of what I plan to do and what I know. And they know it. Because between us, a lot of them talk to me. A lot of them talk to me on a regular basis. They know. Plus, you tell them the things you can tell them, and you know why? They've been going to bed at night with them belly full, have a good night's sleep. The people behind me, no. It's about time that even if them go to bed with them belly full, them can't sleep. Because they don't know what's going on and they don't know what's going to happen. That will play on their minds. And it's playing on their minds right now because this protest next week is a headache for them. It's a headache for them. Nothing against the CG down in Miami. The guy's a great guy. People love him, but it's not personal. It's about people. It's not about him. It's about these people behind me. And until we can come together and realize that the cocktail party invitations, the selfies with these politicians, they mean nothing to the people behind us. You see, when they talk about the GDP to debt ratio, when they talk about the 10 months of economic boom or whatever, you see when them talk about all of these, it means nothing to them people because it doesn't get translated. It doesn't cascade to these people. So that's what them people want to hear from somebody like me, somebody who been in the trenches with them. If you notice, I said like me, not only me, because we have quite a few of me in the group. So now 1 more minute and having a question before we go, because I forgot to do an error.
Well, I think this is a good note to end the discussion on, you know. It's a passion that I think is consistent with Martin Luther King we're celebrating tomorrow is anniversary celebration, birthday, what have you. So I want to thank each and every one of you for today's discussion. It's very informative and it showed that Waterhouse Vibes is back on the ball. Okay?
Yeah, man.
Maxine,
Big up Rattigan.
yes,
Rattigan. Remember, politician go to jail already, no? Jack Smith, you know, for corruption. Don't forget that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the
So
thing about it.
at least you're on your way for sentence some more of them.
Yes, indeed. That's my mission. That's my mission. Yes, sir. You can't tell me, say. And if you go look at Tamarind Farm, look at the inmate population, go GP, go all of them.
No,
And
but
look
no
if
them place there was there. We went there.
and certain people know in them
Research,
place.
yeah. You're right.
You will not find certain people. So when
It never built for them.
people that commit
It never
crime.
built for them.
No.
The people that commit crime. Oh, you're right. It wasn't built for them. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
brethren, there are all sorts of injustice in Jamaica. All sorts. But what is clear today is we have a sentiment which is saying that move ahead with Waterhouse. Get this thing going, and Maxine, we're gonna continue the discussion because I know Patrick has a lot of questions for you. You know, so we're going to have that discussion, and I want to thank the audience, the listeners. Stay tuned and remember, like and subscribe. It's Waterhouse Vibes every Sunday at 3 p.m. Okay?
Very, very good discussion today.
Yeah,
Very
man.
good
That's
discussion.
pleasure being here.
Yes, the virgin.
I
Maxine,
think this,
Maxine will talk.
I think this
Huh?
discussion
We will
bring
talk,
out,
Maxine.
Yes.
All
I
right?
think this
take care,
discussion
Maxine.
bring out the fact that most of us have more in common and connection with the hot house than we thought, you know.
All right, my brethren. See
All right.
you.
Nice.